Laptop lid, microphone test, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep, try it again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Every time I get in one of these situations where I try to get a little bit of peace and quiet, think I've got a little bit of a break, then here comes the noise that starts up and all the distraction and all this other mess, and it forces me to shut down, start over, and I don't know, I'm trying to get through this as quickly as I possibly can because I don't want to spend too much time on this going into a whole lot of detail because there's really not a lot of detail to go into. But I just want to pull something back up which it's something where some people might get to thinking that I might be doing a little bit of backpedaling or have a little bit of egg smeared on my face or might have to eat a little bit of crow because of the way the situations developed and how things pretty much turned out. And it's in regard or in relation to the whole situation in, where's that place again? In Missouri, Ferguson, where that little situation with that thug, so-called gentle giant Michael Brown got his ass popped by the police, and a whole bunch of stinking to-do came as a result of that. And I was one of the, or at least trying to be one of the voices of reason, trying to explain to people, like, look, this whole thing about using this character as the poster child for this is why we need to rally against police corruption. Well, the news turns out now that in light of all this nonsense and all the hysteria and the media hype that's been stirring around as a result of this character, and notice I'm deliberately referring to it as a character, because I'm at the point where I don't think it's deserving of personhood or the identity of personhood anymore. And I think I'm going to just start relating to other similar types of people that way. I'm tired of calling these individuals people. So that's my little mini rant. But the whole thing with this whole backlash as a result of the Michael Brown incident, the so-called gentle giant who was so gentle that he decided that he wanted to threaten and terrorize a convenience store owner just because he was big and intimidating looking and figured that he could get away with it and that nobody could essentially put him in his place or tell him how to behave properly. So Negroes, being what they are, unfortunately, had to rally behind this freak as a symbol of our oppression. You see, this is just more police hatred against black people. We always get, and I've always said, look, nobody is blind to reality. I know more than anybody that black folk have a reputation for being on the bad end of police, just by default, just by being black. Difference is, back in the day, as they want to call it, the whole thing about police are out to get you because you were black was simply because of that. It didn't matter what you did or if you did anything, and back then, overwhelmingly, we were pretty much decent, well-behaved, mind our own business type of law-abiding people, well, within whatever law that was established at the time, which kept us from participating as full individuals, of course, taking all things into their proper weights and balances and proportions, you understand. But be that as it may, we were typically to ourselves. We didn't really get involved with a whole lot. There was no reason for white folk to feel threatened by us or any doggone thing. So they had to fabricate BS in order to essentially just take their frustrations out on us. And anytime we would try to retaliate, or even if we didn't retaliate, they'd still spin it some kind of way to make it seem like, oh, those niggers are breaking the law, so we had to put them in their place. And so we had things like mob violence and lynchings and all this other mess. And of course, the police were usually part and party to the whole mess. And if not so, simply shrugging their shoulders and turning a blind eye. So we've always had that history, even when we weren't being corrupt. But now in this 21st century, late 20th century, and the dawn of the 21st century, now we're giving the police a reason to actually target us and to lay waste upon us. So not understanding, not realizing, as like, look, if we're going to get it, at least let's get it because they have to pull something out of their okole in order to throw it at them and say, oh, well, we have to have a reason to beat up on them and take our frustrations out on them because they're too damn upright that we can't find anything that'll stick on them that's legitimate. But of course, they can't do it that way anymore, not in this day and age, because they'll get called out for what they are. So they'll take essentially what we give them, which is high crime rates, which is disrespect for the law. Here we go. Never fails. But I'm not going to let it shut me down this time. I'm sorry, because I've got to get through this, and I got to explain this, and I don't want to take up too much time, and I don't want to get too frustrated about it. So, our situation with our being not on the agreeable checklist with the police, as you like to call them, is because, as I said, we keep adding fuel to their fire. The simple solution is do good, be upright, be solid citizens. Don't get involved with anything that's going to cause the police to look at you oddwards and in any sort of a negative light. So that way when they do come after you, we live in the 21st century now. We got things now called lawsuits. And guess what? Everybody's voice gets heard now. May piss some people off that, we have that available to us. But see, they gotta play it by the rules. And if they don't play it by the rules and the little mouse decides to squeal and scream, guess what? Heads will start rolling. But no, we have to decide that we don't want to do things the white man's way, and so we're going to just put up this front and just cop this attitude and take everything of benefit that comes as a result of the white man doing it. It's like, well, that's his way, so we ain't going to do it his way, even though his way is going to work best as far as getting some kind of redress. And even if it doesn't in the immediate sense, you keep fighting for it and you keep going through that system. You got to play the game. I'm sorry. In order to get justice and to be treated fairly, you've got to go through the system. But there's something that goes along with going through that system. And that is that you've got to bring something to the table too. And so you can't go up in there with somebody like a Michael Brown in Ferguson and claim that, well, hey, we demand justice, no peace, and F the police and all that other mess. And I'm like, okay, as a result of all that nonsense happening, as a result of that tragic situation where, again, all the eyewitness accounts verify and confirm that there was justification in this boy getting a bullet popped in his ass. Nobody wants to talk about that, though. They just want to talk about, see, it's just the police shooting another unarmed black man. Okay, well, fine. If that's what you want to ride with, fine. But looking at it from a different perspective, I'm still pissed off that people are making a hero out of this thug. Alright, and that's never going to end. But as a result of that, because of all the media hysteria that swept the nation, they decided to use this criminal, or as criminal in making, I should say, because he wasn't a bona fide criminal at that time, not quite yet. But he was making strides, alright? So they decide to use this hoodlum, this little wannabe thug, as, the golden child of police brutality. And as a result of using him in the spotlight, lo and behold, they start investigating other complaints that the Ferguson Police Department had. And sure enough, there was a whole laundry list and a whole record of police mishandling of those of us of the darker persuasion, let's say. Turns out that, yes, it's true, they really did target us, let's say it that way. That this was no accident, that there's friction between the blacks of Ferguson, Missouri, and the police officers of that particular police department. So that means I was wrong, right? No. I'm still right. The problem is that, look, this whole mess could have been investigated in a whole different way. Take, for example, what was taking place in Miami Gardens since 2008. Okay, the quick stop at that location was set up as what they referred to as a zero-tolerance zone in cooperation with the local police, which at that time, it was doing a good job. People really appreciated the job that the police were doing at that time. But a little time goes by, suddenly something starts happening in this majority black city with a majority white police force. Suddenly, people's rights are starting to get violated and people are getting arrested on trumped up charges or no charges at all and whatnot. And It wasn't until this one issue was brought to light about this young employee at the Quick Stop who was, again, convenient target for this corrupt police department. Nobody spoke out. Even the shop owner and his employee refused to speak out at the time because their concern was, oh, it's going to involve litigation, and so it's going to be expensive. We're going to have to attend court dates and all this other mess, and it's going to be a financial burden, which, of course, if you want to change the policy, you got to play that game, and you have to put up the expense that way. Otherwise, well, I won't say don't complain, but you have to figure out a way to address situations like that if you're not going to take it through the court system. And so this is essentially. Thank you for that. So this was essentially what happened. It just got to the point where, this young man, even as he was employed at this Quick Stop, kept getting arrested by the police for loitering. How in the world do you loiter at the place that you not only work at, but it got so bad that the shop owner said, look, just so that they'll leave you alone, I'll set up a little room in the back of the shop. You can stay here, because the boy had a few mental issues and they had this working relationship. He lived a couple of blocks away. I don't know, some of you may be familiar with this story or not, I don't know. But the shop owner decided, well, hey, if you're living at the store, police won't bother you, they won't harass you. That didn't stop them. The damn corrupt police would go in there, inside the store, get the boy out of his room, still take him down to the station, book him on trumped up charges of loitering, and it got to the point where, okay, something needs to be done here. And so they decided that they didn't want to fork up the expense that it would take to bring the thing to litigation. Well, they let somebody else do the job for them. So they went to the newspapers, the Miami Herald, I believe it was. I think it was Miami Herald. And they said, okay, investigative reporters, we got a situation for you to investigate. Do your job, and let's start getting some heads to roll. And let's make local, state, and national news out of this whole situation. And as a result of bringing it to somebody's attention, the police chief resigned. Turns out that these police were arresting people on trumped up charges because of the fact that they were trying to fulfill quotas. That's all it was about. So they would just make up crap. They would even arrest prepubescent children on charges that were absolutely ludicrous, but just so that they could have a tally to show that says, well, see, we're doing our job, we're earning our keep in this new city, so let's just go ahead and make arrests no matter what the charges are. And again, it was majority white force against majority black victims. And ironically enough, the police chief, at least when the police department got commissioned, was headed by a black police chief. I don't recall what the situation was by the time this story broke. I don't know if that was the case, if it was the same police chief or somebody else came in. Doesn't matter. The thing was, the police department was corrupt. They were behaving badly. They were mistreating the people that they're supposed to be protecting. And it turned out that it was white police overwhelmingly violating the rights and constitutional privileges of a largely black populace. Didn't have to be doing anything wrong. The fact that they were set up in the first place was because the citizenry were saying, hey, we want you to make sure that nothing wrong is taking place here. We want the police to serve and protect like they're supposed to do. But over time, they got corrupt and they decided to abuse their power. So something was done with it. And unfortunately, not all the right heads rolled, because out of the people that were involved in this stuff, several of those police officers still have their jobs. A couple of them resigned, but not in relation to what had happened. So again, they stopped short. They should have demanded that these officers got removed from the force, and they should have continued to be picketed and boycotted or whatever the heck it was until they got removed. But there's a whole lot of other kinds of workings and everything that goes along with that explains why these particular officers really didn't have the best interest of the community in mind. Like I said, it's a whole muddled mess. But the thing was, they were abusing their power. Somebody needed to set them straight. And these were people who were involved people who were by and large not doing anything wrong. But see, here's the thing you have to understand. These police in Miami Gardens were actually asked to take care of that situation in the first place because they were already a high crime area in the first place, and they wanted that police protection. This is why there's such a high concentration in largely black communities. We want to ignore it. We want to pretend that it doesn't exist. We want to brush it under the rug as though it's a non-entity. But the simple fact is, black communities, unfortunately, are their most crime-ridden areas, generally speaking. So you're going to have more of a police presence there, and we should want to have more of a police presence there. I mean, that goes without saying. If you live in a high-crime area, you want a force that is going to help counteract the crime that's taking place in there. You want to live in a safe community. But our problem as black folk is that we apparently don't want a crime-free community. It seems like we are contradictory when it comes to living in high-crime areas, but at the same time, we don't want to do anything to eliminate crime. Hey, call the police if there's anything going wrong. Oh, I ain't gonna call the police. I ain't gonna snitch on nobody. Okay, keep living in fear, and then, keep having, whatever goes on. And then when that keeps going on, oh, police don't look after for us. Police don't protect us. So it's what they call a catch-22. And after a while, these police officers, again, majority white usually, because, again, what's our problem? Black folk want to live in a high-crime area, apparently, but they also seem to enjoy police brutality because it gives them something to complain about, because more black people don't actually go up and say, hey, I want to be a police officer, I want to represent my community or what's good about my community, and I want to make sure that this police brutality thing gets put in check. So more blacks on the police force who have more understanding about what goes on in the black community. That way we can do little checks and balances to make sure that those who are not part of our community don't disrespect our community or don't exert an overemphasis of their power. But no, simple solutions like that, those types of things require work, they require action. They require education, they require motivation, they require an effort. And unfortunately, we don't want to take that kind. Well, we take all kinds of effort when it comes to running drugs and being all kinds of gangsters and all this other mess, clocking and all this other nonsense. Yeah, we show what we're capable of there. But sitting down in a classroom, learning sciences and going to college and becoming engineers or becoming somebody who works in law enforcement, learning the judicial system, becoming something like lawyers and, anything that has to do with doing right and doing good, we seem to be allergic to it for some odd reason as a community. So we're always throwing up our hands talking about police brutality this and nobody cares about our community that. It starts at home. So I guarantee you, if the citizens of Ferguson were upright citizens, solid citizens, standing in the good graces, number one, they would ensure that, hey, we're not going to tolerate this kind of behavior. You get out of line, we're going to call the cops on you if we don't take care of you first. Remember back in the day, it used to be that communities were such if somebody got too out of line, the neighbors would gather around and they'd set an example. Remember what? Oh, that's right. Y'all don't remember. I'm talking to a whole new crowd here. I keep forgetting what time frame I'm living in. There's no such thing as community anymore, unless it's having a block party or some, superficial nonsense like that, or running around seeing who can make the most babies with LaMarcus down the street or some mess of that sort. But as far as like having any real community, keeping the riffraff out or making sure that, we have citizens patrols, go to any average middle class or upper middle class white neighborhood and you'll see signs posted up. Zero tolerance, neighborhood watch, citizens patrols. When was the last time we as a community ever did anything like that? So no. I'm getting sick and tired of all this stuff about police brutality. First of all, because there's police brutality, number one, because there's no self-policing the police. Everybody wants to play the role of, they know what's right and wrong on the police force. They know that there are certain boundaries they're not supposed to overstep, and I understand the frustration of their job causes them to take a not care attitude sometimes and abuse their power. I understand the stresses of that job, but they are supposed to be better people than that. They're supposed to be adhering to an ideal. They're not supposed to let things like this push them over the edge like that. So if they can't reel themselves in, somebody within the force needs to do it for them. But they got to have this what they call a what do they call these things? shoot, words slipping my brain. But it's sort of like, they have their own little in-group or clique or whatever the heck it is, that they don't rat on one another, or they always support one another regardless of what anybody does. So essentially, you got police forces all over this country where essentially they're just being good Germans. So, it takes a rare somebody to expose the corruption and to fight against it, usually at their own detriment. And so we need more Serpicos in our police forces to deal with anything that reflects negatively on the police force. That whenever they need to be reeled in, Serpico needs to be in there to make sure that the reeling in gets done. And citizens ought to be demanding also that, hey, police, you're supposed to be our guardians, you're supposed to be our protectors, you're supposed to be our servants. Check yourselves. That's one aspect of it. But another aspect, and one of the main aspects of it, is we need to make the job less stressful for our servants, our protectors. And we need to learn how to live in communities and to behave in such a way to where we don't have to put them under that needless stress. Because keep in mind, they could just turn their backs on us and just go patrol the high-class areas if they wanted to. But no, they go to where the crime is. They don't have to do that, or maybe they do, I don't know, maybe it's a part of their job contract, or maybe it's some ethical thing that they have to do it. But do you think they want to do it? I mean, yeah, they typically, someone becomes a police officer because they say they want to make a difference, but the job ends up frustrating them because they're going to these high crime areas, which are usually our communities, and as a result of that, they're like, what is it with these N-words? Why is it that they don't appreciate the job that we're trying to do for them, and it's like they could care less. I mean, it's like they make us their enemy. We're actually out there trying to help them, trying to give them a safe neighborhood. You see what I'm saying? So, all that to be said, like, look, after a while, or, maybe not even after a while, maybe it's like a cancer that just grows and that it takes intervention in order to eliminate it. But when the police force gets to the point where they need to do some serious introspection, that's a concern, especially when it involves how they interact with our community, the African American community. But we have to meet them halfway, at least, by saying, look, officers, we're going to support you any way we can. We hear something, we're going to let you know about it. If something's not kosher in our neck of the woods, we're going to make sure that you're going to get whatever information you need. And as far as the rest of us, we're not going to give you any trouble. Whenever we go out and we interact, we're going to be upright, solid citizens. We're going to be, standing the line and making sure that we don't give anybody any concern to feel threatened by us or to be concerned that we might get caught up in something. Every time I turn on the news and I hear about somebody getting robbed or somebody, some gunshot, something or other, or some carjacking or whatever the heck is going on, I'm always praying to God. I'm like, dear God, please don't let it be another Negro. Please don't. Don't keep giving them added ammunition to use against us. But I'm talking to the wind. Because you would rather defend a thug who's out there thugging and gets killed as a result of their thugging and then claim police brutality than to actually get up in arms about a little 12-year-old black boy who gets shot dead by the police for running around with a toy pistol. You see, we didn't hear the same kind of outrage about that we heard from this damn Michael Brown criminal, or criminal in the making, whatever. Nope, everything was, hands up, don't shoot, hands up, don't shoot. And every eyewitness account says he did not have his hands up, he was charging the police officer. Reliable eyewitness accounts. Everybody talking about, the hands up, he had his hands up. Oh, how'd you know? Were you there? No. Well, how'd you know he had his hands up? Well, a friend of a cousin's friend of my cousin said that he saw it. Yeah, thank you. So, again, I'm thankful that something like this Michael Brown case was what motivated you Negroes to actually get the situation with their police force investigated. But it could have been investigated a long time ago without it leading to this, had y'all just, number one, cared about your damn communities, and number two, did some following up. Just like they did in Miami Gardens, where they said, hey, look, we're tired of our rights being violated. Let's go to our mayor and let the mayor know what's going on if they don't know, if they don't understand it. Let's go to the newspapers. Let's let the investigative reporters do their thing.
and pull up, see what's going on. Hey, is there really a disparity between black people getting harassed by the police? You know, let's do social media. I mean, y'all love that social media thing to death. So, hey, let's try some social media out there. Let's bring some big names into this whole mess. Let's get this thing investigated, and nobody would have ever died. If you care that much about the life of a wannabe thug, y'all could have avoided that long ago. Y'all could have just gone to somebody's newspaper, gone to an elected official or somebody. But no, you like drama too damn much. You like being the brunt of negative attention too much. You like being the butt of every damn body's joke because everybody's pointing the fingers at us. There go those crazy niggers again. You know, blowing stuff up when they don't understand what the situation's all about, or they're celebrating the negativity. And then they expect us to show them sympathy. And you crazy-ass white folk that are actually standing behind these ignoramuses, you know, marching with these Negroes out there, talking about justice and anti-police brutality. Hey, I'm all with you when you want to protest against police brutality, but make sure it really is police brutality first. Deal with it when it's the police that are wrong. Don't deal with it when the police do something that could be questionable, but it's only in response to when we do something wrong. I am so tired of this horse crap where in order for us to demand respect, it's got to be on the tail of us having done something wrong to get the negative blowback in the first place. F you. End of line.